After 2 days off, the Carolina Hurricanes, or I should say the Hartford Whalers, are back in a very fun showdown between them and the Colorado Avalanche or the Quebec Nordiques, depending on how you want to view it, with the Adams Division showdown of former jerseys back together against these two teams. And it's the penultimate stop on the North Carolina State Fair road trip. Now, the Hurricanes have lost recently, but so have the Avalanche, but they lost in overtime. Who's going to come out on top? Well, we'll talk about all of that on the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin, the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hot Guards, also the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, we are going to be previewing the Hurricanes against the Avalanche game in their penultimate stop, the second to the last of the road trip before they go over to Dallas on Saturday, but they are playing the Avalanche on Thursday night, so let's talk about it. We're also going to talk about which Hurricanes players to watch. Obviously, the big stars are still starring, but they're also going to need some depth to help them in a very tough contest that's coming up against the Avalanche, who on the Avalanche do the Hurricanes need to stop to get back in the win column and maybe give them their first regulation loss of the season. But before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, in the shadow between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Colorado Avalanche, of course, we already know that it's going to be a old Adams Division vibe to the game, with the fact that the Hurricanes are wearing their white Whaler jerseys for the first of 3 times this season. And then, of course, the Colorado Avalanche wearing their Nordiques jerseys for the first of 7 times this season, twice against the Hurricanes. Game is at 9 p.m. Eastern time, of course, on FanDuel Sports South or 99.9 The Fan. If you're going to watch it on the radio, if you are closer to the Colorado broadcast and are a Hurricanes fan, you can watch it on altitude. Now, looking at the tape between the two teams, I kind of put this out on Tuesday, kind of getting a quick preview. Of course, its stats have been updated after the Avalanche played the Utah Mammoth, which they lost 4-3 in overtime for. But the Hurricanes 5-1-0, Avalanche 5-0-2. Just like the Golden Knights, Colorado has not lost in regulation. Can the Hurricanes be the first one, or will Colorado have their 8th straight game with the point? Now, looking at goals for and goals against, this will be a very interesting game between 2 different systems and 2 different teams, where the Hurricanes are more of a defensive-minded transitional team that does basically do a full-court press or a full ice press on the opponents, checking them to death, grinding them down and stuff like that. They are second in the AHL in goals for per game with 4, and they're also 9th in the league for 2.5 goals against, which would be 9th. So they are top 10 in goals for and goals against. For Colorado, same thing. They are in the top 10, but for goals for, they are 6th at 3.43. However, they are first in the NHL with 1.86 goals allowed per game. So the Avalanche are a team that's very much run and gun style, and they will really try to shoot the lights out and beat you that way. But they are a team right now that has not really given up a lot of goals, and it kind of helps when you have a goaltender like Scott Wedgwood basically playing every single game for the Avalanche this season. 5-0-2, a 184 goals against, and a 927 save percentage. He is on an absolute tear right now. Yes, they did lose in overtime, but before that, they won 3 straight games against Buffalo, Columbus, and Boston. So with the fact that, Mackenzie Blackwood got that contract, he's been out so far this season. They brought in Scott Wedgwood last year to trade with the Predators. And so far, he's been pretty much a top 3 goalie in the league right now. And I think it's surprising a lot of people because they didn't think that, you would see something on Scott Wedgwood, but he's doing that right now. One of the main things to keep an eye on, I think this is going to be the biggest concern for the Hurricanes coming into this game, is special teams. Now, both power play units are bottom 3 in the league, honestly. Colorado is 30th at 11.5%, while the Hurricanes are 31st at 9.5%. However, from talking to some Colorado Avalanche beat writers, they said that, yeah, while the numbers aren't the greatest for the Avalanche, they've actually had a lot of high danger chances, a lot of potent opportunities. It's just they've been kind of goalied on that thing in terms of the power play, where for the Carolina Hurricanes, it's been more of a struggle to kind of get pucks on net, kind of find the right guy in the right spot, doing a lot of perimeter shooting and stuff like that. It's been, while on the numbers on paper for the Avalanche don't reflect of where they're at in their power play, the actual eye test for the Hurricanes it's still a struggle, and now it's going to be more of a struggle, the fact that the Hurricanes are going to be out without Shane Gostisbehere for the rest of this road trip, which isn't a good sign to have for your power play 1 quarterback is now gone. Now you have Kendra Miller as your power play 1 quarterback, and then power play 2 unit does carry Mike Riley as their lone defenseman, because on Wednesday it was reported by Walt Ruff that it's not 2 defensemen on the same unit. It is on PP2. Now it's the 1 defenseman in Riley, but now they've added Jesperi Kotkaniemi to the PP2 group, which does include Hall, Stankoven, and Svechnikov, along with Riley. So if the Hurricanes want to get off the schneid of this very tough start to their power play, which is 9.5%, they are going against the PK unit in Colorado, who's 83.3%, which is 10th in the NHL. However, the Hurricanes are 6th themselves at 89.5%. So it's 2 really good penalty kills against essentially 2 struggling power play units, but in terms of the eye test, one looks a little bit better than the other. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. Now, in terms of goaltending, we kind of talked about Scott Wedgwood for the Avalanche, who's been really good. For the Hurricanes, I think with the fact that you saw 2 days off in between the Vegas game on Monday and the Colorado game that's coming up on Thursday night, I would not be surprised if the Hurricanes go with Frederik Andersen. It just makes sense that they're going to think they want to rely on him to go, unless they feel like that Brandon Bussey's kind of done enough so far in this road trip, which, I mean, he has won 2 games. He has a 197 goals against and a 911 save percentage. The only thing I can see them going to Bussey for is the fact that you've got Dallas on the last day of the road trip on Saturday. And if they feel like that, well, who do you want to put Bussey up against? Do you want him to go against Colorado, or do you want to go up against Dallas? That's kind of the big thing, because you saw what he did against San Jose. He won against the Kings. Yes, you can see there's the 2 struggling teams right now. You know, it's a big jump going from those 2 to 2 contenders that could come out of the West for the Cup final in Colorado and Dallas. Do the Hurricanes want to roll Anderson back-to-back games with a day in between? It doesn't seem like they want to really run him into the ground. So if they're really wanting to give Freddie one of those 2 games, it's which one do you want to go with? Do you want to go against Colorado, or do you want to go against Dallas? I could see them being like, hey, let's go up against Colorado, see how it goes. And, you know, if they think they have to go to Bussey against Dallas, so be it. If I had to guess, I'm probably leaning Frederik Andersen in terms of him going against the Avalanche on Thursday. And then if they feel like they have to go with Bussey on Saturday, they can. If not, they can run Freddie back-to-back days, or not really back-to-back days, but 2 games in 3 days. And then, of course, they got the travel back before they play the Vegas Golden Knights, and dealing with all of that coming back on that side of the road trip, which would be on Tuesday the 28th. So it all just really depends on what the Hurricanes want to do there. But it should be very interesting when you look at the 2 sides. You know, both teams are top 10 in scoring, in goals for per game. They're both in top 10 for allowing, you know, few goals against the league. Top 10 penalty kill units on both sides, but both power plays are very much struggling. So if this turns into a special teams battle Which struggling power play is going to come out the most, or are we going to get another 0 for 4 showdown like we saw on Monday night, with the Vegas Golden Knights, where both teams can score on the power play? It should be very interesting. Goaltending matchups should be something to watch as well. Could it be Freddie against Wedgwood, or could it be Bussy against Wedgwood? Who really knows? It should be definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. That being said, what should we keep an eye on in terms of Carolina Hurricanes players? Well, stick around and we'll talk about it here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougit comes in. Rougit.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. So visit rugiet.com/lockedonAHL to get 50% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonAHL. And don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONAHL so they know that we sent you. Rougit. Stop making excuses and start making moves. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. It could be your favorite team that you watch, or maybe it's just your fantasy team. Rather, if you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we kind of previewed the game a little bit, kind of, what's the tale of the tape segment between two sides? What could the potential goaltending matchups be? Now let's look at Hurricanes players to watch. Obviously the big ones, no real surprise here, Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho. Jarvis, 6 goals, 9 points in 6 games with a +3. We all know power play goal, 4 game winners, 2 overtime winners. Sebastian Aho, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points with a +1. Those are your 2 big guys. They're on a 6-game point streak right now for the Hurricanes. As Jarvis got the primary assist on the Sebastian Aho goal, which was the only goal they had against the Vegas Golden Knights. However, Nikolai Ehlers is now officially on the score sheet for the Hurricanes, which is great to see. You're kind of seeing that connection between those 3 guys continuously building over the last few games. And you know that Ehlers is so close. It's just the puck luck isn't there. He's had a lot of opportunities to shoot the puck on net. He has. It's just either the goalie made a great save or he hits a post. Ehlers is so close to popping off. So I'd say watch out for maybe Ehlers getting a goal against the Avalanche. He knows them well, being a former Winnipeg Jet in the Central Division. I think this might be a game where, you might see maybe a goal. You might see a multi-point night from Ehlers because he's definitely due for one, that's for sure. So I'd say you can almost combine these 3 guys together. But you got your 2 stars really showing off for you right now with 6 points streak each for those guys. And the fact that Ehlers is on the board, and you kind of see that chemistry going. But as Rod Burnmore said, too, over the last couple of days following practice, the power plays got to get better. And, he knows those guys are really trying. They're finding the connections. It's just the puck has to start going in. That's kind of what you're really hoping for if you're the Hurricanes, is the fact that you got to get your 9% power play moving, because if you want to win games in the playoffs, if you want to go win a Stanley Cup, you need to score power play goals. And right now, this is probably the slowest start to a power play I've seen for the Carolina Hurricanes in a long time to start a season. So hopefully something kind of turns around there. This isn't necessarily a player. I think this is a whole unit to watch for. It's going to be the defense. How are they going to be on the blue line against a team that's got Martin Necas, who has 11 points? You look at Nathan MacKinnon, who's got 10. Cale Makar, who's got 8. Brent Burns, who has 4 points, is 5th on the team, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to look and see how this team does, because you've been without Jacob Slavin since October 11th against the Flyers after that game. You lose Shane Gostisbehere, on the 18th, a week later in the LA Kings game. So now you're down 2 of your top defensemen, 1 defensive, 1 offensive defensive. And now you got essentially 4 new guys in your blue line, because, you had Alexander Necas play 4 playoff games last year. But if you're talking about guys who've played 10 or fewer games with the Hurricanes in terms of games that matter, that's still 4 new guys essentially on your blue line between Necas, Miller, Legault, and Ryan, Mike Riley. So that's a tough ask. They've done pretty well so far in terms of, up until this point. And even Legault, who, played 12 and a half minutes, did finish even against Vegas. He still kind of held his own for his, AHL debut, way to be thrown into the fire there. But, Miller scored some goals and got some assists. Alexander Nikishin's got a goal and a few assists as well. Mike Riley's got some assists, and he's looked really good too. So while there are some guys who are still newer to the system, they're still playing well, all things considered. But now this is a real, all right, here's you just played Vegas. That's going to be that was a tough test. Now you get another tough test in the Colorado Avalanche that, while Vegas has a Eichel, a Marner, a Stone, a Dofoyev, and all of that, you still have an Avalanche team that it's who I believe, and you heard my prediction at the start of the season, could be a team that's coming out of the West to go for a Stanley Cup, because you look at Makar, MacKinnon, Necas, Landeskog, Nikishin, all these are Nichushkin, all of those guys. That's kind of the big thing for the Avalanche, is that they got dudes on that side. Even talking about Devon Toews, a good defensive defenseman. Now they got Brent Burns, Jack Drury. Sam Malinsky's been kind of showing off to some people as well. Brock Nelson. These are some guys to really definitely keep an eye on, and it's someone. And you look at Scott Wedgwood and net; he's been really solid for them. So this is going to be a really tough test. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Hurricanes defense holds up against a team that under Jared Bednar is a very run and gun, high shooting offense, a team that can score at will. And you're talking about superstars across this lineup, and, some other guys that have been really stepping up recently. And like I said, Martin Necas leads the entire team in points. Sound familiar to Hurricanes fans, because that's what he did a few seasons ago, where he led the Hurricanes in points and beat out Sebastian Aho. Now he's, as of right now, after 7 games, leads Nathan MacKinnon, but it's only by a point. But between Necas, MacKinnon, Makar, and Artturi Lehkonen, all 4 of those guys have a +9 across the board, which is so crazy to think of too. And the fact you got game-winning goals across the board, power play goals, and stuff like that. Brent Burns has 4 assists, and he's a +3 in 7 games for the Avalanche. So it's just, it's the, Colorado Hurricanes for some people, because you got so many Hurricanes players on that team now. But you got to look at the Avs. They are a really good team, and there's something to keep an eye on too. But I think the Hurricanes have the opportunity of what it takes to do it. It's just, as a group, the defense really has to step up for the Carolina Hurricanes. And just like you got the stars, they're still need to star out for them as well. Another guy to watch, I hate to say it, it's gotta be Andrei Svechnikov. If you're on social media and you follow me at One True Zach on X, you saw that I posted a tweet, whatever you want to call it, that basically talked about, out of the 21 guys who skated for the Hurricanes, 18 of them have points. 3 of those guys out of the 4 have played 2 games or fewer. Mark Jankowski's only played 2. Jacob Slavin still hasn't played since the Philadelphia game. Oh, and Charles Alexis Legault just had his debut on Monday night. So you have 3 guys that have played a combined 5 games with 0 points. That's understandable. When one of your best defensemen is out due to injury, didn't make the road trip, okay, that happens. Mark Jankowski's swapping back and forth with Barry Kotkaniemi for the 4th spot. Okay, that's understandable. Your last guy just made his NHL debut after, having a great summer. Okay, that's understandable. But you look at Andrei Svechnikov, 6 games, -3, 12 shots total. He's averaging 2 shots a game, 0 points. Demoted the fourth line, demoted to PP2. Do I think that it was a smart move by the Hurricanes? I don't really think so, because now you had your fourth line of Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Robinson rolling. Now that line's kind of stalled out a little bit, and Hall's kind of doing okay on the second line with Stankoven and Blake. But I feel like even with Svechnikov now putting up points on the board, at least that line was kind of going too. So I kind of feel like swapping those two hasn't really done what you thought it was. But overall, this is probably the slowest start I've seen from Svechnikov, and I don't know what is really going on, but something has to change. Something's really got to get moving for him, because you expect this guy who was your second overall pick years ago to be that guy for you, or one of the guys. Like, we were all pretty excited for him coming out of the playoffs where he had 15 points in 15 games. Like, okay, maybe Svech is back. We got playoff Svech. Can that carry on into the regular season, where it's been kind of a little bit of a struggle for him? Out of the gates, like I said, you're demoted, -3, averaging 2 shots a game. You're looking at 12 in the last 6. You got to hope something pays off for the guy, because you cannot keep going without him rolling. Because now that's one less guy out of your top 6 that you kind of expected to kind of be there. Ehlers is finally off the board, but he's been close. Svech, I haven't really seen him be close like Ehlers has in terms of scoring. So, I don't know. If there's someone to watch, hopefully it's a kickstart that Andrei Svechnikov needs, because the Hurricanes are going to need him. Not just for the fact that you're looking at your stars running the show in your top 6, but you got to get him going too. So it should be very interesting. Now, all that to be said, who should the Hurricanes watch for on the Avalanche to hopefully shut them down if they want to get back in the win column? Well, stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queue, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are an absolute game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. How big? Well, you can even find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we kind of previewed the game between the Hurricanes and the Avalanche, talked about Hurricanes players to watch, kind of talked about guys to watch, a little bit about the Avs in segment 2, but we're going to dive into a little bit more to close out this episode. Like I said, Avs players to watch. Former Carolina Hurricanes, Martin Necas, leading the way with 11 points for the Avs. Is second on the team in goals with 5 behind Nathan MacKinnon, but does lead the team in assists as well. He is one of 4 guys with a +9. MacKinnon, Makar, and Artturi Lehkonen. Does have a power play goal, but it's one of those things you knew when he got the opportunity to get the ice time, where he's, instead of playing like 15, 16, 17 minutes with Carolina, he's playing well over 20 minutes with the Avalanche. He's on a line with Nathan MacKinnon, and he's just been popping off. And I know people want to try to keep dunking on the Hurricanes because, oh, look how great, the guy I hate that he's doing so well. He did well for the Hurricanes, but you can definitely tell it's just unfortunately the system wasn't really working for him. He got a fit that worked for him, and you heard it from post practice on Wednesday from Jarvis and Martin, all those guys. They still talk to Martin Necas. They're happy for him. They wish he was still a Carolina Hurricane, but they're happy for him that he got his opportunity finally. He's finally showing the skills that he had. It's in a system that works. So, this is going to be one of those revenge games, that the fact that you get to see him, for the first time against the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes already played the Avalanche by the time that trade happened last season. So this is the first time they get to play against them. And you're also talking about playing against Jack Drury. You're also talking about now playing against Brent Burns. You got 3 former Hurricanes that the team gets to face for the first time this season. Like I said, you had Burns the last few seasons. You traded Jack Drury and Martin Necas away after the 2 games against Colorado. So this is the first time you get to face all 3 guys for the first time together, and it's in a game where it's, Whalers jerseys, Nordiques jerseys. You got, a big, Stanley Cup preview that a lot of people think. I think this could be a Stanley Cup preview for sure, because you're talking about 2 teams that could easily meet each other for the Cup final. But this is a very big game, and I think Martin Necas is going to be one of those guys where there's going to be a revenge game. There's going to be some aspects that he's probably going to turn up a little bit more. And you can say, oh, well, players be like, oh, it's just another game. But some of these guys are going to be like, hey, former team, I want to kind of show out. I think he's going to be someone to watch that might want to take that next step and really want to beat the Hurricanes. So I'd definitely say keep an eye out for Martin Necas. Obviously, no surprise, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. I mean, those are the superstars. 10 points, 7 games for Nate Mac. 7, he's got 6 goals. Cale Makar, 3 goals, 8 points in 7 games. I mean, you're talking about 3 of the 4 guys that are a point per game. Even Artturi Lehkonen, I mean, he's got 2 goals, 7 points in 7 games. Those are kind of like your 4 guys right now who are a point per game. But your 3-headed monster, Necas, MacKinnon, Makar, no real surprise there. I think Martin Necas alone is something they got to talk about. Obviously, the superstars in Mac and Makar, that's no real surprise there. Maybe you want to combine Brent Burns and Jack Drury. Facing off against the Canes, Jack Drury, goal and 2 points in 7 games. Brent Burns, 4 assists in 7 games. Obviously, those 2 are definitely keep an eye on too, because a lot of the guys for the Hurricanes love Jack Drury and obviously Brent Burns, along with Cale Makar. So like I said, it kind of goes back into the former Canes who are now at the Avalanche, who definitely want to win those games as well. Someone that I'm definitely keeping an eye on, Gabriel Landeskog, the captain. Yeah, he only has 2 points. They're both assists in 7 games. But this is his first regular season action in over 3 years. Yeah, he got back in time for the playoffs, for the Avs. But it's back to the rigors of playing a full regular season. So yeah, it's maybe not the start that he wanted, but Gabriel Landeskog is still someone to watch for. He is a +2. Like I said, 2 points in 7 games. It's the captain. It's definitely a big jump for the Avs to have your captain on your team and seeing him back on the ice. So, and I'll be transparent. He is one of my favorite non-Carolina Hurricanes players. I got family that is from Sweden, and he's one of my favorite Swedes. It's just facts. I like Gabe. I like his story. If you haven't seen any of the documentaries surrounding him, I would definitely recommend it. But he is someone definitely to watch for sure. But this should be a very interesting game between 2 sides. Obviously, if there's another player to watch, Scott Wedgwood. If he is in goal for the Avs, on-your-own runner for this guy. Like I said, he's got a 184 goals against, a 927 save percentage. He is definitely someone to keep an eye on because, the Hurricanes need to score outside of, Jarvis and Aho, and he's someone that they're really going to have to get to early, and hopefully they do, but it should be very interesting to see how that works out. But I know we named a lot of guys for the Avs, but if I had to pick 3 guys to watch out for, it's definitely the 3-headed monster, Necas, MacKinnon, and Makar. If you try to shut down those guys and limit their power plays and you get at least a power play goal yourself, or at least get, their stars to score and maybe get some depth help, I think the Hurricanes could get back in the win column. They could go 6-1-0 to start the season. You go back to 4-1-0 on the road trip before your last stop in Dallas. Hopefully, maybe you give Avalanche their first regulation loss, or, if you beat them in overtime, then, hey, you got the point, you got the extra point, and you move on from there. But it should be very interesting. A lot of good things to watch out for. Former Hurricanes playing against the Carolina. You've got the Jersey matchup of the year between the Whalers and Nordiques, old school Adams division. A lot to watch out for. And Thursday night should be a lot of fun. And, of course, we'll talk about all of it, recapping it on the Friday show of Locked On Hurricanes. But until then, this will be the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Your first lesson. Your second lesson, we're going to Locked On April game night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where if you click the link tree in my bios, you can find all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. Make sure to go do that because I've been putting out a lot of stuff recently. Talk about Seth Jarvis's early season impact. Talking about the notebook recently that talks about the Whalers jerseys and not having Shane Gostisbehere. Also been doing a lot of game previews recently, so make sure you go check out the one that will be dropping for the Hurricanes at the Avalanche on thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcast, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up so let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday and enjoy watching your Hurricanes on Thursday night against the Colorado Avalanche in a Whalers vs. Nordiques jersey showdown as well. But until next time, as always, let's go Canes.